The Arizona Cardinals should 100% hire Sean Payton.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. I'm on location in Southern California for Thanksgiving. Excuse the video if it's a little off today. I'll be back at it this weekend. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Lot to talk about today. Lot to talk about. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your jobs for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. A little programming note, I'll be not doing a podcast on Friday. I'll be spending it with my family, but I'll be back at halftime at the Chargers-Cardinals game to do a halftime show and then the post-game react show right after, like I do every week. A lot's happened since we've talked. Sean Kugler has been removed from his post due to groping a woman, reported by Josh Weinfuss of ESPN, friend of the show. I tweeted out after Bob McManaman, another respected journalist, here in Phoenix. He tweeted out the initial report and then followed up with he was let go Sunday night, sent back to Arizona, was not coaching on Monday. So he 100% should have been fired for this. It's unfortunate because he's the eldest statesman. He has the most experience of any coach on the staff. But he had to be removed. I'm going to talk about Sean Payton, though, for a large portion of today. And Sean Payton, according to Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler, both of ESPN, has interest in the Cardinals head coaching job and the Chargers head coaching job if either of them were to become vacant. And at this point, you feel like if the Chargers make the playoffs, Brandon Staley's job is safe. It seems more and more clear that the Cardinals will not be making the playoffs. And unless they can make some sort of massive run here, into week 12 and then after their bye week with some winnable games, there's going to be some uncomfortable conversations that will have to be had. One of which is Kliff Kingsbury going to be the head coach and realize the contract extension that he was given this offseason? Is Steve Keim going to be GM and realize the contract extension that he was given this offseason? We don't know. Is Kyler Murray going to play on Sunday? We don't know. And it seems like after the game on Monday, I talked about this a lot, that the team gave up. Budda Baker after the game was quoted as saying something to the effect of people weren't playing hard throughout the game. He answered that question. I think it's time for a full-on reset, tabula rasa, clean slate. And Sean Payton is the perfect guy to come in and do this. The perfect guy, because he's done it already. The New Orleans Saints were a laughingstock of a franchise in the win-loss column for a long time. A long, long time. And he was able to come in 2006 and turn that organization around. He took a young quarterback in Drew Brees after being chosen after the San Diego Chargers chose Phillip Rivers over him. He was going to go to Miami. Miami chose Dante Culpepper. He lands with the Saints, and the rest is history. The New Orleans Saints win-loss record before Sean Payton was 244, 381, and 5. Sean Payton's win-loss record was 152 and 69, and they won a Super Bowl. And they probably should have made another one if refs, saw an egregious pass interference call that they missed. He'd just do it again. He turned Drew Brees into a Hall of Fame quarterback. Drew Brees, the undersized Drew Brees, turned him into a Hall of Fame quarterback. What's to say he can't do it again? He obviously loves a project, and the Arizona Cardinals are a project. And if you look at the skill position players on the offensive side of the ball for the Cardinals, any seemingly closely offensive-minded head coach would be salivating at the chance. Now, you could say the same about the Chargers for sure. And, I mean, it may be a better option. But if the Chargers make the playoffs, they ain't firing Brandon Staley. The only snag here is that Kliff Kingsbury still has a contract extension waiting for him at the start of the 2023 season. And the other snag, the biggest one of all of them, the most irrational one of all of them, but yes, the biggest one, the most ironclad, uncircumventable situation that the Cardinals have seemingly in their organization is that there's no way Michael Bidwill's firing Steve Keim. There's just no way. That is the root of the definition of insanity that encapsulates the Arizona Cardinals organization. Michael Bidwill's inability to separate personal friendship from winning. He can't differentiate between the two. He refuses to. And it shows a complete lack of wherewithal, NFL aptitude for running an organization, and really common sense, which is the most problematic, because I'm sure Michael Biddle was a very smart guy. He was accomplished before taking over the team for his dad. But that is a brick wall that even the Kool-Aid man couldn't walk through. So that's going to be the snag, because everything else checks out. Young, up-and-coming quarterback who has hit a plateau because the coach can't coach him up any more than he has, in my opinion. There's been a lot of Kyler slander, a lot of Kyler Murray slander on Twitter. And you know what? I will say this and I will continue to say it. I'll take the player who's won his entire life over a coach who's never won his entire life. And a GM who's put together 6, 7 winning seasons. Like, I know he's only been the GM for 10 years, but if you tell me that Steve Keim deserves to have his job still, I vehemently disagree. Vehemently. Sean Payton is a guy who's had the perfect amount of time to cool off. And he's itching to get back in the game. He's itching. He saw when Drew Brees was going to retire that, you know what? I'm going to take a couple years off. I'm going to go make some cheese wearing a suit and tie and standing on the field. But he's been quoted multiple times as saying how much he enjoys Kyler Murray's game. And if there's one coach who could take a quote-unquote undersized quarterback and elevate him, it's Sean Payton, because he did it for almost 15 years. Not 15, 13 years with Drew Brees in New Orleans. He did it year after year. And I'd be hard-pressed to find, on paper, an offensive skill position group that is better that he had to work with in New Orleans than what the Cardinals have right now. I'm saying on paper. I know Marcus Colston, Robert Meacham, Devery Henderson, they had a bunch of guys. They had a bunch of running backs come through there. I mean, they had guys. But DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, Rondale Moore emerging, James Conn, it's an embarrassment of riches. And I think Sean Payton would salivate at the chance if he were given the opportunity to have more control than just calling the X's and O's. I think it'd be a perfect fit. And I think it would be ludicrous if the Cardinals win 6 or 7 games this year for Michael Bidwill not to cut ties with both the head coach and the GM who put them in this spot. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. Thank you for hanging out. I hope everybody enjoys their holiday season. Again, I will not be doing a show on Friday. I'll be hanging out with my family here. I'm allowed to take a vacation once in a while, but I do. Thank you very much for hanging out. Thanks for being a part of this. And you know what? It's going to be fascinating once again to see how this season plays out. And if Sean Payton is infused into the future of the Arizona Cardinals, it would completely change the face of this organization. It would change the trajectory because we've seen him do it before. We haven't seen Kliff do it before. I'm going to talk about more in depth about this a little bit. I will talk about the Sean Kugler situation and why he was let go and the fact that it was the right move that he was let go. I'm going to talk about both of those things next. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp Therapy Online. Now, BetterHelp is, it's a company that has a collection of therapists that, like, therapy is the thing that, not a lot of people at times will jump into and think, it's dumb or whatever. I've been in therapy throughout my life and it helps immensely. Okay. Life doesn't come with a user manual. All right. So whether, when it's not working for you, it's normal to feel stuck, and therapists are trained to help you figure out the cause of challenging emotions and learn productive coping skills, which makes therapy the closest thing to a guided tour of the complex engine called you. BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient, secure, and accessible anywhere, 100% online. And, everyone deserves to feel their best. BetterHelp makes it easy to get started. Okay. It's available 100% online. And if you, aren't exactly jiving with the first therapist you link up with, you're welcome to change whenever you want. You can do it via Zoom with the camera on, with the camera off. They make it as comfortable for you as possible. Okay, just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with the therapist. And again, if you aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new one. There's no waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless search for the right therapist. Get unstuck with BetterHelp. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This Sean Payton thing is just fascinating. He was quoted as saying, I think it was 2 weeks ago at this point, maybe, around there. He was quoted as saying, and I'm paraphrasing, that there are a lot of teams that aren't going to win out there, and he wants to avoid them. And it's interesting that he still, drops the Cardinals' name with reports again from Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano of ESPN that the Arizona Cardinals head coaching job, interests him. Now, there's another kind of way to get him in, okay? I'm like bargaining with myself to rationalize the fact that Steve Keim is never going to get fired. You can do a partnership. I would try, like Steve Keim is never going to get fired, okay? So, I think, I realize that. I try to give alternatives to what would happen if he did. This organization would be just unleashed out of the, definition of insanity that it's been infused with since 2013 when he took over and started drafting, as he drafts, statistically the worst GM drafting since. So you can say that he's drafted well, but he hasn't. So that's the thing. So if you put him in the war room with Steve Keim, like an adult would be in the room at that point with Sean Payton. And Sean Payton hasn't always had the greatest drafts, okay? But found Alvin Kamara, damn it. Found Michael Thomas. There's a second round pick. What about the second round wide receivers that Steve Keim has found? Andy Isabella? Chad Williams in the third? That was a good one. He wasn't even invited to the combine. Christian Kirk was fine, but never realized his true potential here. So if they would have fired Kliff Kingsbury and bring in Sean Payton and have Steve Keim still be GM, I'd still feel a million times, more confident in the coaching and front office stuff. Because Sean Payton's got friends. He'd bring in somebody. He'd bring in a new offensive line coach, run game coordinator. Sean Payton is an adult. He's a winner. And that's what the Cardinals need. The Cardinals need to not worry if the head coach is doing their job properly. Kind of goes without saying, but the Cardinals need a head coach that they don't have to worry about. With BA, you didn't have to worry about him. He had a kind of a laissez-faire, rudimentary way of coaching. He was the true player's coach, but he'll eat your lunch. He just didn't. He didn't have a restrictor plate at all. He didn't have a restrictor plate on his play calling. It was throw the ball down the field. Either catch, hope for a PI, which they got copious amounts of with John Brown and Jerron Brown and J.J. Nelson and BG and Britton Golden. Like, it didn't matter. Run fast, turn around, catch the ball, or hope for a PI. That was kind of a part of the offense. The defense was good, too. Defense was veteran at that point. There were some young pieces, obviously, but it's a veteran squad. Kliff Kingsbury, like, okay, there is a line into a conversation that could be had that Kyler Murray's the problem, okay? I think it's asinine, but I think that the blame pie is like 60-40 Kliff Kyler. 65-35 Kliff Kyler, 70-30. I like 70-30 Kliff Kyler, okay? But doesn't mean Kyler Murray's devoid of anything. And that's like either you think it's one or the other. No. But I do think that Kliff Kingsbury severely lacking in the ability to elevate players. Severely. He goes as the talent goes. He's a passenger, not a captain. He's a backseat driver. He's not a guy. He's not a leader of men. He can't elevate talent. The Cardinals win because their talent prevails. He has a couple great play calls here and then for sure. But do you trust Kliff Kingsbury to make the right play call when they need a first down? I don't. I just don't. Shame on me. Or, fool me thrice, fool me 20 times, shame on me. Now, is that unfair to put all the blame on Kliff for this season? Yeah. And I don't put all the blame on him this season. I mean, everybody's injured. But it's like, we could talk about, let's talk about poor Arizona Cardinals, and they've got all the injuries. It's like, what are we just going to just not talk about the play on the field at all? There's still a structure with players who are backups and players who are starters. It's a demeanor. It's how you carry yourselves. And if you tell me in the second half the Arizona Cardinals didn't give up, I don't care who's on the field. They gave up. And you know what that is? That's leadership. That's structure. That's stability. Well-run franchises don't give up. Ever. And that's what we witnessed. Quickly with the Sean Kugler being let go. He definitely should have been let go. 100%. Josh Weinfuss had it. ESPN groped a woman over the weekend, was let go. Okay. 100%. That was my bad, where I jumped the gun too quickly and said that he was a scapegoat because it couldn't have been Kliff or Steve Keim. 100% on me. I didn't see the full report. I should have waited. That's on me. 100% on me. And I react to reports that I see, and I should have waited until the full story came out. It was an incident, Bobby Mack did a great job reporting it, that it was an incident. There were a bunch of, well-respected people out, who did, and I should have waited until I saw the full report to have any sort of real thought process on it. So that is 100% on me. But the Arizona Cardinals did the right thing by letting Sean Kugler go. And hopefully the Cardinals can rally and get the offensive line a little bit healthier and make a push through the rest of the season. And listen, crazier things have happened than a 4-17 making the playoffs. But it starts with Sunday against the Chargers. And we'll see what happens. There's one thing that I want to talk about as tonight rolls on with Hard Knocks in season. There was a report out that they will not be talking about any of the Eno Benjamin stuff. And I'm going to softly question that. And I'm going to talk about that. And, it's fascinating. This season has been wildly fascinating for, not only just on the field, off the field stuff, everything in between with Hard Knocks being here. Like, it's fascinating. Not good, not bad, fascinating. I'll rip that through next segment about my thoughts about why they're pulling it when it was the biggest storyline, even though it's, Benjamin. He was 7th round pick and, he was released. And we're not going to find out anything? Huh, that's interesting. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. I'm going to roll that on next. First, betonline.net. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by BetOnline, is brought to you by LinkedIn. Holy mackerel. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Okay. I use LinkedIn a lot. And it's interesting that it makes it so much easier for people who have job openings to find people that they're looking for and target it to an audience for qualified, applicants for their job. So you make your post, add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And I get to go local, get to talk about mysolarnerd.com. If you're in the market for solar, you want to listen up. mysolarnerd.com, these guys are local, okay? They're not out-of-towners who are going to, use misleading tactics and end up overcharging homeowners. They've been doing this for a while and understand that an educated customer is a happy one, and their no-pressure approach will make sure all your questions get answered. They firmly believe that if you live in Arizona, switching to solar should mean saving money. Once you're ready, they'll put their industry knowledge to work for you by choosing the best equipment, warranties, and Better Business Bureau accredited installer. They'll also help you find out all the credits and incentives you may qualify for, and they'll make sure to your transition to solar as smooth as possible by managing the entire project for you and keeping you updated along the way. Our listeners will get a $50 Amazon gift card when they book a no-commitment evaluation. And remember, this promotion is only for our listeners that are homeowners. So for those that are homeowners, visit mysolarnerd.com and select Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us section. Make the switch to solar on your terms. Start your research process by visiting mysolarnerd.com today and show Locked On some love by letting them know we sent you. Folks, getting solar or going solar doesn't need to be complicated. mysolarnerd.com makes it easy. All right. Fascinating season. I've been doing this since 2017 on Locked On Cardinals. Thank you, David Locke, for keeping me employed for that long. You can follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. The Eno Benjamin release, I talked about it more in depth than I normally would have earlier or, mid last week. I think it was actually a week ago. You can check it out on Wednesday's podcast of last week. 7th round pick, Arizona State. Okay. I talked a lot about how the Arizona Cardinals are a transplant team, just like the city in which they play. And building an identity surrounding a team that constantly has moving pieces and additions from other organizations is difficult. It's difficult to sustain. It's difficult to build upon and strengthen. And when you have a guy like Eno Benjamin, who's been a fan favorite because he went to ASU, and, in James Conner's stead, when James Conner was out for a handful of games, Eno Benjamin came out as an RB1. He played really well. And there was a commotion, heated discussion between he and an assistant coach after a win, and he was promptly released the day after. So my thought was, oh man, this will be interesting to see how it went down on Hard Knocks in season. And then there was a report out a couple days ago that said that it would not be featured at all on Hard Knocks in season, the episode that's airing tonight. And that perplexed me. Because aside from, the actual game storyline, they've got 40 minutes to fill. That's one of the biggest stories surrounding the team since we last saw the Hard Knocks in season episode. And I know that the team has control over what gets aired and what doesn't. And I know that you don't want to put your team in a bad light when you see a commotion between a player and an assistant coach. I understand that. That makes rational sense. And don't sign up for Hard Knocks or don't accept the bid if you don't want to show what happened. Now, that's easy for me to say. I don't own the team. I'm not on the coaching staff. I'm not a player in that locker room. It could show them, it could expose some things. Don't sign up for Hard Knocks. Don't accept the bid. This, to me, cowardice is a strong word, but this shows to me just the Arizona Cardinals being the Arizona Cardinals. Running the organization like they've won 10 Super Bowls. How dare you? We will not be posting that. That will not be part of the episode. We've got it from here. We know how to run a successful organization. We've done it. Look at the Super Bowls. Look at the trophies. Now, that may be like, we don't know what happened. We don't know what was said. You don't have to show the face-to-face or whatever it was, the argument. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what it's about. It's not about like popcorn TV, like, ooh, let's see somebody get cut. That's not what it's about. What it's about is acknowledging that something happened and allowing that to be acknowledged and allowing that to be a part of the story of the season. What, are people just going to forget that Benjamin was cut out of nowhere after something that happened with the coach? That's it? But pending what was said, and I don't know what was said, but there are very, unless there was something absolutely egregious, it's like, what harm would it have done if you sit him down, like I said last week, and have a conversation with a young man, his second year in the league? Maybe he made a mistake. Maybe you give him a second chance. Maybe you be different. Say, you know what? That was unacceptable. Will not be tolerated again. You're suspended for 3 weeks, and you're going to come back, and you're going to be a part of this team. And this is barring something egregious. And trust me, I don't know, but if this was just an argument with a coach, and again, we don't know, but if this was just an argument with the coach, and he was cut because of it to set an example of, because he was only a 7th-round pick, and you just let him walk, and then it's scrapped from the episode in its entirety, not even discussed. Cowardice is a strong word, and I'm not going to use cowardice, but how about cowardice light? Cowardice light. It's a working title. I'm fascinated again to watch tonight's Hard Knocks in season. Hire Sean Payton. Correct to remove Sean Kugler from his post. And fascinated to see if they even mention the name Benjamin tonight. That's Locked On Cardinals Wednesday live podcast in a nutshell. I will be doing my crossover with Mr. David over there and Locked On Chargers. That is going to be fascinating. We're going to post that tomorrow. Said fascinating way too many times today. And then Tyler Rowland and I will be doing Locked On NFL Thursday, national stories, talking turkey. Tyler likes, what is it, green bean casserole? Out of here with that. Out of here with that. I will be, eviscerating him. So if you want to hear about some sides and do things like that, we'll talk about the games, obviously, the Thursday night games. You can check me out there, Locked On NFL, free and available wherever you get your podcast as well. Thank you for hanging out. Hope everybody has a fantastic Thanksgiving. I will be taking Friday off. I will be back Sunday at halftime of the Cardinals-Chargers game. Hopefully with the Cardinals having a big lead and turning the season around. Alex Nancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you Sunday at halftime.